Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for joining this session. So tonight I'm going to give you an introduction to WeCloud Data's Data Science Bootcamp, and I'm going to explain to you why this is a better, bootcamp, and why and how we can help you build a successful career in data science. So I'm going to share all the details, and I would expect you to ask a lot of questions, and hopefully you can enjoy this session. First of all, I would like to let everyone know that you can already get started with learning data science with WeCloud Data by following us on YouTube, join our Discord channel, or sign up, on our learning portal, because we do have some open courses, and we run some live sessions from time to time. So if you would like to start learning SQL, Python, data fundamentals, we have free courses, and we're also planning to launch, free data science courses and some other machine learning topics. We are starting a new cohort of the Data Science Bootcamp in May. So both cohorts, part-time and full-time, will start at the end of the May. If you would like to learn more, this is the right session. First of all, I would like to introduce the student learning journey. I'm going to explain a typical bootcamp learning journey, and I'll explain to you why WeCloud Data offers more value, and how committed we are in terms of helping students land a job. A typical process with WeCloud Data starts from, and of course, admission and registration process. But once you're in the bootcamp, you'll go through study, right? So whether it's a 3 months full-time program or 6 months part-time program, the student will go through learning first. And then after that, we have a stage where we call experience building. So that's when students work with us on real client projects. We do own a consulting company, and we put students on these projects to get trained and also build up their industry experience and knowledge. And these experiences help tremendously when a student, go through job interviews. And also along the way, we offer one-to-one career mentorship. So I'll explain how these works, in this session today. Regarding the data science bootcamp, we have two options. The first option is full-time. So the full-time data science bootcamp is a 3 months program that we expect students to study 40 hours a week. So you basically will have to, do this on a full-time basis. We help students with portfolio project building, but included in the tuition, student will gain access to 6 months of real client projects, as well as an additional 6 months of one-on-one data science mentorship. So the mentorship is more about helping you prepare for a career, get your resume fixed, improved, and help you with, mock interview until you get a job offer. So we start with the bootcamp first, and then we move on to experience building and career support. In terms of the bootcamp, we cover data fundamentals. So SQL and Python and some basic data visualization skills are very important. I'll cover these in details. I'm going to share with you the curriculum. I'll just give you a high-level overview at this point. And then we move on to data science skills. So after you have learned SQL and Python, you need to know how to do data analytics, right? How to do data science, or preparing data for machine learning. And after data science, we focus on machine learning. We spend quite a bit of effort on machine learning, but it's not a typical, online machine learning course, because we focus very much on use cases, industry knowledge building. And then we move on to big data. So big data will definitely give you an advantage in the job market. You need to know how to scale machine learning solutions. This is where we introduce, Amazon Web Services and Apache Spark. Wait for more details. And after you finish the courses, again, you start to work on real client projects. And then at the meantime, the student will receive career mentoring until they get a job. For the part-time students, the curriculum will be exactly the same. Of course, students will have a full-time job. In this case, you will be studying like weekday evenings and over the weekend. And so the real client project will be optional. So the tuition is actually, the price is lower if you don't opt into the real client project building. Typically, student will start by finishing the boot camp first, build 3 to 4 portfolio projects, and then later on they will consider doing a real client project. And the mentorship will be 6 months as well. So everything else will be the same. The only difference here is that the boot camp duration is longer because you cannot commit 40 hours of learning on a weekly basis, and that's why we're going to double the learning time. Regarding the real client project, as well as career mentoring, it will be the same experience. Some students do have questions. For example, I do have a full-time job. Can I still work on real client projects? It depends on how you optimize your time, but some students will choose to work on projects during the weekday evenings and over the weekend. They'll try their best to meet with the client for a weekly sync up. And most of the communications can happen over Slack or some other communication channels that's preferred by the client. All right, let me introduce the journey to you. This is a typical bootcamp journey, right? You finish 3 months of training, and they have some sort of demo day or demo week where the bootcamps will invite, say, employers to join the demo day, and the student will do presentation at the end, and then you get certain amount of career support. This is a very traditional way of delivering the bootcamp experience. With WeCloud Data, let's talk about the full-time bootcamp first. First of all, again, you go through 3 months of bootcamp training, and the students will be completing 3 to 4 portfolio projects during the bootcamp. Right. So when you work on data science topics, then you'll be completing a data science and analytics project. When you move on to machine learning, there will be 1 to 2 capstone projects the student will need to complete, and then everyone will need to complete a big data project as well. And after the training, students will start the experience building. So these are real client projects that are very different from the portfolio projects, and I'll share more details later. Regarding career support, we have 3 weeks of career workshops, and this is done part-time. So that's 30 hours of career workshops and career support. These are group sessions, and I'll explain in detail how this works. But after the group sessions, student will be paired with mentors who work in the industry as data scientists, and they will be working with them on a one-on-one basis to receive resume and career support. So this is what the full-time bootcamp experience would look like. With part-time, again, you probably guessed it, it's very similar. And for some students, the real project can kick off sooner. So you don't really have to wait till you finish the 6 months of training, and some students would prefer to start somewhere in the middle, because at the very beginning, they're not even sure if they can complete everything on time. And then once they start to gain more confidence and experiences with data skills, then they will opt into the real client project. Okay, well, now let's talk about why you should consider WeCloud Data, and then I'll move on to talk about the bootcamp curriculum. Okay. First of all, I don't think we just strive to help students land your first data job. And we really want to help our students to build a successful data career. So getting your first job is important, but teaching you the right knowledge and giving you the right experience that sticks with you for many, many years to come can help you become a successful data scientist. This is what we are aiming for. And we do this through, several different approaches, and we keep improving our delivery mechanism as well. First of all, and recently we started to rethink about, how we deliver student learning experience. So we're adapting to a flipped classroom approach. If you're not familiar with it, it basically means that, what you're paying for is not just sitting through classes or lectures, right? We have recorded a lot of the theory lectures. We produce a lot of content. So we would enforce, right, or encourage students to complete the theoretical part, or watch the recordings, do preview before you attend every class. Well, this is for full-time students, but same for the part-time students as well. Now, in the actual lecture, that means we can spend less time just explaining the very simple concept. And the instructors will be summarizing what's more important. And we encourage students to bring more questions. And that gives us time to discuss more use cases. Because ultimately, I think, nowadays you have ChatGPT that can write a little bit code for you, right? I think the coding part is not the most important part if you want to become a good data scientist, but understanding how to apply different kind of techniques to solve practical challenges. I think the problem solving part is the biggest challenge for people who would like to get into data science. But because of the way the traditional classrooms are, arranged, we have to spend a lot of time, right, delivering, lectures, and then 3 hours is actually very short. You can only cover one topic, and students will have a lot of questions. Then the instructor always find that they just couldn't teach more. There's so many materials we have prepared, and we realized that in a matter in a matter of 3 months, we just couldn't finish delivering everything we would like to teach the students. And that's why we're rethinking how we deliver the bootcamp experience, and producing these recordings for the students to preview, right, will make the classroom delivery experience much, much better. And we will encourage students to ask more questions. And a lot of times when we ask students, why are you guys so quiet? Why don't you guys ask questions? Because we thought that the students will always, should ask us questions, right? And then we realized that the students said, well, I'm just still trying to digest whatever the instructors have taught. And sometimes, on the spot, I just don't know what are the right questions to ask. And they need time to process that. But by the time they're able to ask questions, the lecture is already over. And the students have to come to the teaching assistants, or some students, because everyone will have a different, schedule. And some students will, if they're parents, then they will be busy. Let's say during the lunch or evening, dinner time. And then they will only have time to focus on study, apart from the day, learning during the day. But then they might be able to do some review 10 p.m., for example, when the kids are put to bed. But that's the time probably the teaching assistants are also not available, right? So that's why, having preview, right, producing materials for the student to study before, attending each class is very important. So during the lecture, we can actually spend more time discussing the practical use cases. That's usually what happens in the morning. And in the afternoon, because we're doing the online live teaching, it's very important for students to be able to interact with each other. So peer problem solving or peer programming is very important. First of all, we encourage students to, at the very beginning, you're not going to like it. You don't feel comfortable doing programming, coding in front of other people, sharing your screen. But some of the real life interview, right, in those interviews, you actually have to share your screen and do peer programming with interviewer. So we're going to encourage students to basically work in groups on a daily basis to solve very practical challenges, and they can bounce ideas and discuss, right? And you can learn from each other. I think one of the biggest things you can learn during a boot camp is not just from the instructors, from the lectures. It's actually from your peers. So that's very important. And then we have the lab solution sharing sessions where teaching assistant or instructors will walk you through the solutions and teach you the right way to do things. And we also have, office hours or on-demand support where students can book meetings or mentoring sessions with our instructors and teaching assistants. So that's how we deliver, this is what a typical day would look like. I think another advantage, right, WeCloud Data has is that we try to use different data sets for teaching. The typical data bootcamp experience, we've worked with a lot of students. We do something very similar in the past as well. The biggest challenge is having access or letting students have access to real life data sets, right? And that's why everyone's going to Kaggle, working on some of those data sets are actually great. but many people have worked on them. But we're fortunate enough to be able to provide real life data sets to the students, right? So when you're learning data science, Python programming, you'll be working with real life data, or 95% close to real life data, because we do care about privacies and things like that. So that means, every exercise you do, it has a purpose. It's not always going to be Titanic data set. It's not always going to be sales data set that you can find online. It's going to be real, Google Analytics data set. Or when we learn sales data analysis, it's going to be real CRM data set, right? You'll be working with different kind of data sources. When you do product analytics, you'll be working with, Amplitude, Mixpanel. These are some of the most popular product analytics tools that many companies use, right? And for advertisements, we have Google Ads data. We also have some of the data sets that we worked with, the clients we worked with in the past, they actually authorize us to use their real data set for teaching. So that is going to be very different experience that we deliver to the students. And being able to have access to real life data sets means that when you actually get the job and start your first day, you're going to be already familiar with a lot of those data, right? Another advantage we have is that we try to teach a lot of real life use cases, right? So every week there will be 1 to 2 different themes. You're going to learn practical use cases. One of the biggest challenges, during interviews for a lot of the students or folks who want to get into data science is that let's say you get an interview for a fraud analytics, right? Or fraud data scientist, interview, and then they might actually ask you business related questions, right? Sometimes the jobs don't really require you to, you don't have to have worked in a bank in order to get, become a data scientist in a bank, but it will be great if you understand the use cases, right? So that's why we cover a lot of practical, use cases, and we cover, for example, custom analytics. This is probably one of the biggest hiring sectors, right? Because any companies that has, corporate clients, B2B businesses, or consumers, B2C businesses, they have to acquire customers. So there's always, the customer lifecycle problem, right? Where do we acquire customers? So that's the acquisition, right? So how do we apply machine learning for customer acquisition? How do we keep customer loyal, right? How do we retain the customer, which means you would like to reduce the churn risk. You can find a churn data set online, but usually there's no real use case attached to it. And the data structure is also very simple, right? You still don't know how data set can be prepared properly, right, in the telecommunication industry. And there are a lot of practical techniques that you need to learn. And these are the things that we offer in this program. So we cover custom analytics on the supply chain side, time series, demand forecasting, product analytics, and also growth analytics. If you want to become a data scientist in startups, then you need to understand how to do growth hacking, because one of the biggest challenges for startups is basically how to grow their customer base. And a lot of times what the data scientists do is just analyzing customer behavior data, product usage data, and provide insights back to the business, or train machine learning models to help the company acquire better customers, right? But you need to understand what are important metrics, right? KPIs people care about when they do growth analytics. There are actually 50 different metrics that you can track for growth analytics, right? If you Google, people tell, here are the 50 different, plus different key metrics. So we will be focusing on training the students with these real life use cases. So when you go through or work through your data science projects or exercises, it will feel more meaningful, and you will always have like a purpose, because it's tied to your purpose when you work on these exercises. Okay. Projects. So portfolio project building is also very important. So as I said, the students will be typically completing 3 to 4 projects during the bootcamp, but some student will spend extra effort after the bootcamp to build up their portfolio. So you're going to get a lot of mentorship hours during the bootcamp, right? We'll teach you how to choose the right topic, the right data set to work with, and how to write project summary, how to build a portfolio properly, and how to do presentation, because you will end up doing some sort of presentations in your data science job interviews for sure, right? And then after the graduation, we help the student build experience. So experience building part is probably one of the biggest differentiators of WeCloud Data's data science bootcamp, because I think it's a tough job market right now. Having 3 to 6 months extra real life experience is going to make a huge difference, right? I've talked to many people. They're data scientists or data professionals in their own home country who's struggling to land interviews in Canada. But we also have students who 3 months ago or 6 months ago, they're not even in data analytics. They have to learn Python SQL. Now they're getting 1 interview every week, which is actually very, very impressive in today's job market, right? So how do we deliver the project experience? We have an entity called Beam Data. So students will typically be joining specific project teams. You'll be working with our full-time consultants. You'll be working with our project managers. So you'll be joining a team, and you're definitely not alone. We're not throwing students at our clients, because most of the clients will say no, because that's not what they want, right? We need to deliver the project. And on the client side, depending on the businesses, sometimes if it's an AI startup, you might be working with the CTO, the CEO directly if the company is smaller, but they have interesting projects, right? There might be bigger companies, public companies that you might end up working with, project leads, project managers, and IT departments and things like that. But you'll receive a lot of training and guidance, and we'll be doing all the business development and make sure that the project can be delivered on time as well. So this is a very good way for you to build up experience really quickly. And for most of the career switchers, I think that experience gap, right, or you don't come from relevant background, I think that's what WeCloud Data can help you, the challenge we can help you solve. And of course, we help you with careers, job interviews and, job search through one-to-one career mentorship. I'll share more details later. That's another, reason why you should consider WeCloud Data. At the end of the day, I think you're building a lot of, relationships. It's very interactive experience because you're not only interacting with the course material and content, you're interacting with instructors. A lot of those instructors are, they work in the industry. They have a lot of experiences. You interact with your classmates, and most importantly, work with your mentors. Like the mentors, they already work in the industry. So it's not really a 3-6 months relationship, right? That relationship can last, and networking is also very important. And you get to build relationship with the clients as well. Sometimes our students will get hired directly by the clients, and some students are really just trying to learn the business rules and the business ropes. So later on, they can even start their own business, their own companies, right? So those are really great experience you're gonna gain. And also we have a pretty big community, right? We have a lot of open courses, and we have online events. So there will be opportunities for you to interact with the community as well. All right, so I think I gave you a lot of good reasons to at least consider WeCloud Data's Data Science Bootcamp. Now I would like to introduce the curriculum to everyone. First of all, you need to build up your data fundamental skills. We used to include this in our data science bootcamp, but in the future cohorts, we may actually turn this into a separate course, which is called Data Fundamentals. That essentially means that we are raising the bar for students to enter the bootcamp. So you need to have Python SQL experience already, or if you don't know these fundamental skills, we'll let you go through the data fundamental course, and the fee will be waived for bootcamp students. Okay, let's talk about the data fundamentals. That's the prerequisite. Some of the topics we would cover include SQL. So we cover databases, right? How to write SQL queries, and students will be completing SQL projects as well. And then we will cover the fundamentals of Python programming. We'll cover functions and modules, how to work with data frame, and basic data collection as well. And as a data fundamental course, I think we'll have to cover, how to do visualization as well. So we'll cover Tableau, and then we'll teach students how to, how to create plots and charts, how to choose, the type of plots, and how to choose the right color, right? Those are all very important. So that's included in the visualization basics, and student will practice how to build a dashboard using Tableau. But these are the fundamental skills. After this course, you'll meet the prerequisite, right? You'll be able to actually do basic data analysis. You'll be able to meet the prerequisite for the bootcamp, but it doesn't mean you're a data expert, right? So there are a lot of things you'll need to learn. These will give you the fundamentals to be successful in a bootcamp. When you're in the bootcamp, we'll start to introduce data science, right? So data collection is very important. A lot of people think that this is part of data engineers' responsibility, but data scientists will definitely need to know data collection. You don't need to be an expert in data ingestion and working with different tools, but at least the data scientist will need to know how to use Python to collect data from APIs, and roll up your sleeves and write some code to scrape data, right? And these are fundamental skills you need to have. It helps you understand how data collection works. That is very important, okay? And once you collect the data, you need to know how to analyze and manipulate the data, right? So this is where we've put more emphasis on Pandas data frame, how to do data munging and data preparation using Pandas. And after you have prepared data, it's time to start analyzing data. So this is where we teach how to do visualization, data exploration using Pandas, and how to answer business questions through exploratory data analysis, and also how to prepare data for statistical analysis. Okay. And the course is built around projects, right? So that's why it follows, some sort of workflow, right? Starting from data collection to data preparation and data exploration. And after that, we'll teach students how to do statistical analysis. I think I had some typos there. Sorry about that. Now, what makes this course different is the way we choose data set and the use cases we cover, right? So some of the real life data sets students will be working with are product analytics data, where students learn how to do A/B testing, digital analytics data with Google Analytics data. So we have real life Google Analytics data, and students will be working with those when you learn Python. Right? So you're not going to work with toy data set, okay? And we'll be learning product analytics, learning how metrics work, and also learn digital analytics as well. And these are perfect data sets for you to do visualization and data exploration as well. After data science, you'll be moving on to machine learning. Machine learning is a pretty big topic, and that's why we spent more time, more weeks on machine learning. First of all, we'll be introducing students to the machine learning world, of course. So we'll be introducing machine learning and also how to work with some of the ML libraries and APIs such as scikit-learn, which is pretty typical, right? We'll cover mathematics for machine learning, linear algebra, calculus, and statistics. We'll teach you enough math so that you will be understand most of the machine learning algorithms. We need to introduce optimization methods as well. But the math, to be honest, is not that deep. We'll need to cover enough math so you understand how things work under the hood. But definitely you're not going to, write your own formula, okay? But you might need to be able to, implement, for example, stochastic gradient descent for a regression model, or implement your own k-nearest neighbor, algorithms, which is not that hard, okay? And then we'll move on to talk about the basic algorithms and the general workflow of machine learning, right? This is when students are introduced to regression analysis, classifications, dealing with some of the classical machine learning algorithms such as logistic regression, decision tree algorithms. And it's important to understand evaluation metrics and how to, do model validation, right? And after that, we move on to feature engineering. It's important to know how to engineer features so you can build better machine learning models. And when you have a lot of features, how do you do dimension reduction? How do you do feature selection? That's what we cover after we have, taught students the basic algorithms. And then we move on to advanced algorithms, right? Random forest, boosting trees. There are different variations of boosting, XGBoost, cat boost as well. And then we cover hyperparameter tunings. This is when you have to do a lot of tunings, which means automations and pipeline also becomes important. Otherwise, your code is always going to look pretty messy, right? So we'll introduce machine learning pipelines, how to write your custom pipelines, transformers as well. And then we also need to teach, model interpretation, because your model and algorithms start to become more complex. So being able to interpret the model is also very important, right? And after this, we'll move on to unsupervised learning, where we cover clustering, right? That includes k-means, hierarchical clustering, but also dimension reduction techniques. Some of the use cases we'll cover include anomaly detection as well. So you can use k-means for anomaly detection, but you can use algorithms such as, isolation forest for anomaly detection as well. So we'll cover some of those techniques. Okay. And then, of course, you need to learn deep learning. This is not an AI course, but students will be introduced to some of the most important deep learning, libraries, as well as, algorithms. So as a data scientist, you know at least how to do more advanced machine learning or deep learning. So we'll introduce neural networks, PyTorch, right, Torch Lightning, and also introduce the computer vision basics, such as image classification. We emphasize more on natural language processing. So we will talk about, word embeddings, topic modelings, and text classification as well. And it will be using PyTorch and some of the deep learning libraries for doing that as well. And last but not least, we cover time series analysis as well. So that includes the classical algorithms, right? Such as regression analysis, but we will cover, how to use deep learning methods for for time series analysis. Another important topic is that how to build time-based features. Sometimes it may not be time series-based forecasting, but in your features or data set, you may have some, time dimensions. How to build time-based features to improve the model, model accuracy. That's something we'll cover in the bootcamp as well. When it comes to machine learning, there's so many data sets that we can provide to the students, including product analytics data from Xpanel, Google Analytics, Google Ads, sales data. When you want to do customer acquisition, how do we do lead scoring, for example? How do we acquire the best customers? But that also means that you need to understand how to do lookalike modeling, because obviously companies want to acquire the best customers, right? So they have to look into their existing customer base and, see who are the best customers, create the seeds, and then they can, use different algorithms to create lookalike models. And that's quite common in the industry as well. And students will be working with the Web3 data that we have access to. Okay, these are some of the industry use cases. We typically focus on one use case, and some weeks we'll be covering 2 use cases. And every week, one group of students will be doing all the research, and they will be doing presentation as well. So all of these research is going to help you save significant amount of time during the job search phase, because you'll basically get familiar with many different types of machine learning challenges in different industries. And these are very practical ones that covers majority of the use cases out there. Okay, so that includes sales prediction, growth analytics, right, which includes acquisition, churn, customer understanding, audience expansion, supply chain time series forecasting, even how to do topic modeling for competitive analysis, sentiment analysis, how credit scoring works, and also fraud detection. So these are some of the use cases we cover. week by week. Okay. After machine learning, we move on to big data. Not all companies have big data problem, but having big data skills will definitely give you an advantage, because if you look at the job market and do some analysis, you'll notice that the top 3 skills for data scientists will be SQL, Python, and maybe TensorFlow or PyTorch. But right after that, you'll notice keywords such as Apache Spark, Amazon Web Services, right? So these are the things related to big data and cloud. It will be nice if data scientists understand a little bit more about data engineering as well. But in this big data course, it's not a data engineering course. It teaches you how to scale data science and machine learning. Okay, so this is the curriculum. We'll give students a quick introduction to big data, including distributed systems, how the traditional Hadoop and MapReduce work, and also how to scale your pandas, because companies don't always need Apache Spark. What if you have data set that's 50 gig, 100 gig? Using Spark might be an overkill. So how do you scale your pandas? And there are different solutions, right? And we'll introduce students to the world of cloud computing, covering AWS use cases, and teach you how to work with S3, EC2, and some other machine learning services that we're going to cover later. Okay, this course is, of course, pretty much focused on how to scale data science with Apache Spark. So we introduce data frame, Spark SQL, and how to do machine learning in Spark. So scaling ML pipelines, distributed machine learning algorithms, and also Spark machine learning. Last but not least, we cover a little bit ML engineering as well. So we'll discuss how models can be deployed and maintained in production, how to scale your machine learning pipelines using Amazon SageMaker, and also how to deploy models with SageMaker. This is not going to turn you into like an MLOps engineer, because you need to understand a lot of infrastructure side of things, but it teaches you enough so that you know how to work as a data scientist that sort of work in a product or R&D environment where the company has a strong engineering culture and they always want to deploy data science solutions into production, right? And a little bit Docker concept will be covered as well. Some of the real life data sets, healthcare fraud data, some of the digital advertising data that we worked on in the past, and we got permission to use for teaching, and product analytics data. So these are the big data sets that you expect to work on. Some of the use cases, of course, ad tech is heavily relying on big data solutions. So fraud detection, click-through rate prediction, how to build recommender systems, and how to do social media analytics when you have large amounts of text data. So these are some of the industry use cases we will cover in the big data course. Okay. All right. So I think I just covered the curriculum in detail. And ultimately, if you look at a data scientist resume, all of these practical use cases and all of these hard skills that you learn in the bootcamp in the first 3 months or 6 months of the bootcamp is going to allow you to add the relevant keywords on the resume, right? Whether it's coding, Python SQL, analytics, right? Data visualization, data munging, data preparation, cleaning, and then machine learning, right? And also big data. So having these relevant skills and keywords on the resume is the first step. But in today's world, I think it's not going to get you job interviews, because you'll need project experience for sure. So now let's talk about the real client projects. First of all, the real client projects will help you develop in-demand, project experience. You're going to definitely be able to put what you learned in the bootcamp, right, to practice. Or even though it's impossible to find projects that will let you work on exactly the same thing, right? Everything you get taught in the bootcamp, it's kind of hard to find a project that allows you to practice everything, right? But we have a project selection, process where the students are definitely going to work on relevant projects, right? And then throughout the whole process, I think you're learning the business ropes. Right? You not only learn how to work with Jupyter notebooks or write Python script to solve technical challenges, but you need to understand how to talk to the business team, how to intake their requirements, and how to understand their requirements, right? And sometimes you have to explain things to the clients and educate the client because they don't always understand the technical side of things, right? And so the business experience is very important. That also will become your biggest talking points during interviews, right? And that's how interviewers will be able to tell whether you have experience or not. And also you need to work like an architect, right? Like a data science architect, which means you understand how things work end to end. You understand how to access systems, right? Even though you don't need to become system admin, but at least you have worked with the IT department to gain access to resources, to cloud, right? You understand the process. And you'll be working on a project that's larger scope, and you'll be doing documentation. Having documentation experience on the resume is always preferred, right, by employers. So the real client project will allow you to add, experience to the resume. One of the biggest struggles of career switchers is that, on your resume, you can put company A, company B, but you just don't know what experience you should put on the top. And if you're a career switcher, that means your current job is probably not very relevant to data science, right? So having that real client project experience that you can put on the top is going to, be a game changer for a lot of the career switchers. All right, so in terms of the real project, right, you work with the clients directly, but you'll be working in a consulting team. You'll be working with our full-time consultants, the project managers. When you start the real client project, right, we don't just put you on the project, there'll be onboarding training as well. So there will be project management training. There are things or, materials that are related to the projects that are not necessarily covered in the bootcamp, because in the bootcamp, it's impossible to cover everything. We teach AWS. What if the client uses Azure, right? So sometimes you have to be ready to learn things on the fly. If the bootcamp doesn't cover time series forecasting, but we do have time series forecasting material or, recorded material and exercises that you can go through to get prepared for the projects. That's because we have worked on 7 or 8 supply chain AI projects. So we're pretty experienced in time series forecasting, how it works in practice. And these are the materials that we can use to train the students and get them ready for projects, right? But it's never going to be perfect. Sometimes we don't have the material and they have to sort of be ready to do self-learning as well. But there will be an onboarding training phase where you actually work with the project managers. And then you get onboarded into the projects. You'll be meeting with the client. And a lot of times you'll be starting, you'll be joining a project that's starting from scratch. And then you'll be able to learn how the business requirements work, and also help, scope out the projects. And you'll be doing research as well, of course. And then you'll be, getting ready for accessing the client's cloud infrastructure. And some of the clients might actually send you laptops. It doesn't happen very often. Most of the time, you'll need to get VPN, sign NDA, and then join the project, okay? And then we're starting to hit those milestones, right? We manage projects using Kanban board. So on a weekly basis, we have to do reviews and planning, and it will be interacting with the project team over Slack. A lot of times the clients will be on Slack, but sometimes they would prefer their own communication tools. But then we'll be starting to deliver the projects and learn a lot throughout this process. And then you'll be doing final project presentation. But it really depends on when you're going to get a job, because you're not just going to work on these projects. Some students will want to dedicate all of their time to the project and then start job search. But in parallel, you're probably working with your mentor, getting your resume ready, right? Starting to apply for jobs and test water until you have more time and you can focus on job search. So you might actually get a job before you even finish the project. But the project experience goes onto your resume as soon as you start the project, so that you will start to have a competitive advantage in the job market. Just last week, right? When we help a student prepare interviews, these are some of the interviews I just copy and pasted directly from Slack. The student told us the interview questions by a local bank, right? And it's a panel interview. So there are 4 interviewers, I think the hiring managers and some other, technical team members and maybe someone from the business side. And I removed some of the questions, but here are some of the questions that I think you'll be able to answer well if you have worked on real life projects. Right? These are mainly behavioral questions. The first question is, have you ever made a data mistake and how did you overcome it? Right? I think you can talk about any kind of mistakes. It could be a mistake you made in the portfolio project. Let's say you wasted, 2 weeks on something and realize you made a silly mistake and you have to start from scratch. But again, I think they're expecting you to tell them the real life, mistake you have made in your previous job, right? So if you have done that, you will be able to, be more ready to answer this type of questions, right? There are questions like, have you ever been in a situation where you couldn't meet a deadline, right? Most of the client project has a deadline, and you're not always going to meet the deadline. One of the big projects we did last year, we were like 2 months behind, right? That gives you at least some reasons to explain to the client why you're behind, right? Sometimes it's the team, it's the scope of the project, all kinds of reasons, but you're expected to sort of have some sort of experience so you can tell people. Have you ever had any disagreement with your manager? In this case, it could be your project team members, it could be the project manager, or even the client, right? And how did you handle it? Can you share the last piece of constructive criticism you received from your manager and how did you respond to it? We do give feedback to the students on a weekly basis, right? And can you tell me a project that you had to use AWS and how did you use it? So these are the real interview questions. And it was actually a very short 30-minute interview. That was the second round. And then the third round will basically be a more technical round or take-home assignment. Okay. All right, let's move on to the last piece, which is the career program. So in the career mentoring program, there are actually 2 different parts. So we will do group job preparation workshops. So that lasts, in the part-time program, that lasts 3 weeks, right? So that's like 20 to 30 hours of career preparation. And then we start to pair the students with mentor, and they will start the one-on-one sessions with the mentor. And then they will help you with salary negotiation as well. This is how it works. In the job prep workshops, these are group sessions, right? So we cover things like how to write a resume, how to build your LinkedIn profile. We'll help the student prepare behavioral interview questions. You have to do group practice. We'll help you work on your elevator pitch as well. So we have a language coach or someone who's actually specialized in in just communications to spend one day with everyone to do preparation. And then this is also the 3 weeks where students are going to go through a lot of real life interview quizzes, right? So whether it's take home assignments, okay, coding challenges, SQL and Python, and we'll also cover a little bit data structures and algorithms, even though these are not really software engineer, data engineer, or ML engineer interviews, right? Most of the data science interviews are not going to be data structure and algorithms related, but it will help you get started. But don't want to overpromise, because if you spend like 2 months on this, it's probably a waste of your time, okay? Most companies will want to give you a take-home assignment. They would like to understand how you can solve real-life problems. And then the student will start the career mentorship. That's one-on-one relationship between you and your mentor, right? We'll find a mentor for you. And then they will help you with the portfolio project reviews and give you feedback. And they will help you, improve your resume as well. Even though in the group sessions, we already help the student with resume, but it's case by case. Like sometimes when you apply for a specific job in specific industry, you might need to tweak your resume a little bit. So that's I think what the mentors can help you. But the mentors are not Superman, or Superwoman. So it means that they're not gonna, be able to help you with like, how to write the best resume for every industry, right? If they come from a banking, background, it doesn't mean they specialize in like, in a mining industry, right? But having someone, right, that can help you do research, provide you the support and feedback you need is very important along the way, right? And then I think the biggest, usage of your mentor's time is actually mock interviews, because every job interview is different. So you need to sort of give them the job description. They'll help you do some profiling, which means they help you expect interview questions based on the job description and based on their experience. They'll help you with the mock interview. And sometimes if you can't meet in person or meet online, you can just record your interviews and you can send back to the mentor, and they'll help you. They can help you do retrospective, which means if you fail a couple of interviews, you want to know how you can improve, right? So that's when you're going to tell your mentor your interview experience, and they can help you, do some assessment and decide what's working, what's not working, and what should be improved. So this is what your mentorship experience would look like. Cool. I think I covered everything. And now, how to get started? So I just want to let everyone know that we have a pretty standard admission, process, right? You have to talk to the program advisor and then do a screening, like assessment. It's not a super hard assessment. And then you just go through the registration and payment process. We do have a pre-boot camp. And we also have data fundamental courses. It could be live session, it could be recorded sessions, but we'll go through those to get prepared for the boot camp. And then once you start the boot camp, you'll be getting the support from your program manager, from instructors and teaching assistants. And I just want to let everyone know that there are different options, right? You can do the boot camp, but some students will be sort of enrolled in all three options, right? But if you have graduated from a bootcamp already, maybe you just want to add the real project experience, or maybe you just need the career mentorship. So you can purchase these in separate packages, or you can combine these, depending on what you need. Cool. That's my presentation today to introduce everyone to WeCloud Data's Data Science Bootcamp. Now it's time for you to ask me some questions if you have those. Oh, sorry. So it's not 4 one-on-one sessions. I think I need to add some dots there. But yeah, it's 6 months of career support. So it's not really just 4 sessions. Our experience is that on average, we think the students will take about 10 to 15 sessions, and then they will get jobs. That's just like our internal statistics in terms how many sessions the student will have with their mentor. Yeah. So definitely not just 4 sessions. Yeah, so the student will have some choice. This is something actually we're trying to work on our platform. So I think maybe by end of the year, that's probably when the time when everyone graduate from the May cohort, or maybe from the September cohort. So we will give student the ability to choose the mentors they want. So you basically have access to the catalog of all the mentors. But the way it works right now is that the students will tell us the industry they're interested in, the mentors they're interested in working with, and then we'll help them do the matching. However, I do want to let you know that it happens that the student are just not happy with the mentor, or they think that the mentor is not as helpful in terms of getting them a job in a very specific industry. We pay the mentors based on the hours they spent with you, which means you can work with different mentors. So you can just change mentors. That's no problem. How much math do we need to know coming into the program? We don't really expect students to know much about math before coming into the program. Yeah, we'll teach you math from scratch. So statistical analysis, things like basic statistics, distribution, statistical testing such as chi-square test, t-test, A/B testing. These will be covered in the data science course. And then after the data science course, at the very beginning of the machine learning course, we will cover optimization, linear algebra, as well as calculus. But the calculus part is very minimal because you really just need to understand how to do gradient descent, calculate partial derivatives, but you're not the person who's writing those formula because you'll be just working with the packages. But still, you need to understand how that works, but it's honestly not a lot of math. And then when we cover advanced algorithms such as XGBoost and deep neural networks, when we cover backpropagation and those kind of things. So when we are on those topics, we will cover the math that's required for that, because we realize that if you spend 1 week on math at the very beginning, people will get pretty bored and you really just don't know why you're learning all of these. And then by the time you start to get introduced to neural network, you already forget about those math already. So since every week we have like a theme, so you're most likely to learn enough so that you can you know how to work on all the exercises and assignments that's assigned to you for that week. So you build up your coding similar to Python programming. We're not going to teach you to become a very strong Python programmer at the very beginning in the first few weeks. But you realize that when you start to work on a portfolio project, you need to set up databases. You need to learn how to use Python to connect to MySQL database. When you work on data scraping, then you need to work with Beautiful Soup, Selenium. So your coding skill will also improve over time, because it's very hard for someone to just spend a month on programming and just get super good at it, right? Especially when you don't come from computer science background. So you'll improve over time. Is career counseling and mentorship available for part-time students? Yes. So the only difference between full-time and part-time is the real client project. And the reason why it's separated for the part-time program is because most of the students have full-time jobs there, so they can't really commit to the project, and some students don't need it, and that's why we make it flexible. But if you're studying full-time, like your goal is definitely just getting a job, so that's why the real project is included in the in the full-time program. But any boot camp you take with WeCloud Data, career mentorship and counseling is always included. Yeah. You do have the option to opt out of it though. If you think you already have, like, for example, in our data engineering program, we have a lot of, or machine learning engineering program, we actually have a lot of data scientists or software engineers who have years of experiences. So they just feel like they may not need a mentor because they're pretty good with interviews already. So in that case, they can opt out of the career mentorship. The cost structure of the program. So the full-time program, before discount, we have different types of discount and payment plan. The full price is 15,000 Canadian dollar, and you can do the math for US. I think it's around 13,000 or something. Part-time program is $10,000. So you basically get $5,000 off. But if you would like to work on the full-time projects later, you just need to pay the difference. So including the real client project, it will be the same fee. We have different types of discounts. And I believe right now we also have some special promotion going on just for the next 2 weeks. So you can talk to our learning advisor to learn more about the discounts and scholarship. Any other questions? How much is the bootcamp by itself? So the full-time bootcamp is just one flat fee. It includes everything. It's $15,000. I think for the part-time program, the fee is 10,000. Sorry, it should be 9,000 if you opt out of career support. So it's $9,000 for the bootcamp, plus $1,000 for the career support, and then plus $5,000 for the real client project. I hope I'm correct on this, but I think when you talk to learning advisors, it will give you the best answer. Yeah. By the way, these are all in Canadian, but on the website, we do have US pricing as well. But I'm not gonna do the, currency conversion right now. There's a question for someone who is not from STEM background and wants to transition from business administration roles to data scientist roles. What will be the level of difficulty to learn the concepts of machine learning? Will there be any books, PDFs, recordings shared to refer to it later? Yeah, we do have books, references, tech blogs, um, and blog posts and articles you need to read. So trust me, you'll never be able to finish reading all of these. So I think the best way to learn is just in the boot camp. We try to cover from a very practical perspective. So you're not going to get lost that easily because every week we have a theme. But of course, you still need to learn all of those technical skills. So that's why we have the recordings of most of the lectures. So that covers the technical stuff. So you can even preview before you attend the class and you can bring questions to the class. And then every lecture will be recorded as well. So you can watch the recording during the evenings. But during the lecture, we're not really repeating everything that we cover in the preview videos because then it's a waste of everyone's time. So yeah, so there will be overlap. For example, if it's a 2-hour video covering one specific machine learning algorithm, then we'll do the review. We'll still cover some of the most important things you need to know. But just going through that wouldn't take you 2 hours anymore, right? If the student has done a preview. So we have more time for discussing how to apply it. And the instructors will be doing live coding so you can follow along as well, right? And then in the afternoon, you'll be doing the peer problem solving, like peer programming with your classmates, and the teaching assistant will be sharing the solution. And then on a weekly basis, you'll be doing use case presentation as well. And so, yeah, so that's the approach. But to answer your question, we have worked with a lot of students who is coming from non-STEM background. I would say 40% of the students are coming from non-STEM background. So they're very typical career switchers who hasn't been doing a lot of programming. So that's why I think doing the pre-boot camp is going to help tremendously. And if you join like the program last minute, assuming that you can pass the assessment, that means you're just going to be busier than other students. There will be a little bit stress at the beginning. What we found out is that most of the students, if you coming from absolutely like, non-coding background, and like first week, you're going to start learning coding. The first 2 to 3 weeks will be the most stressful. After you have completed your first Python projects, you'll feel a lot better. And then after you finish the second project, which is typically the midterm time, after finishing that, which is a machine learning project, I think most of the students will be quite okay with it. And we've seen students coming from non-STEM background came out, as a top student in the past. It all depends on how much effort you put into it. So, and don't forget that, when it comes to interviews, if you come from a business background, you may actually have some advantages as well. So yeah. How do you take the assessment? So typically the way it works is that you have to talk to a learning advisor. I think one of our learning advisors is online today. Let me see if she's still there. Louise is here. But yeah, so you can maybe talk to Louise, or you can go to our website and just fill out the form. So you can go to any the data science bootcamp page, or maybe I can just tell you where to find it. but you can go to WeCloudData.com, and you go to any bootcamp page. Let's say the full-time data science program. Yeah, you just fill out the information here, and I think our learning advisor will contact you, and then they will arrange the assessment. So you basically go to our learning portal. They will add you to the test, and you finish the test, and then we'll send you an admission letter, and then you can use the admission letter to apply for loans, or you can just go through the payment process. And as soon as that's finished, you'll be connected with the program manager, who's going to do all the onboarding, add you to the program, add you to Slack, give you access to pre-boot camp, and they will start to do on-demand support. Yeah. Is it possible to land a job in the US through the boot camp as a Canadian? Yeah, that happens many, many times. But it's a little bit tricky, I think. It depends on how you like this to work. So we do have a couple of students in the past. They studied, during COVID, and then they went to US. And of course, you have to figure out the paperwork and have a legal status in the US to be able to work. But all of those students will get jobs in the US. It's actually not that challenging for them, as long as they have the real consulting experience on their resume. But we also found that during COVID, we have quite a few students who just stayed in Canada and then they work for a US company. These are remote jobs. There are two different scenarios. There are US companies that have a Canadian office. So then you will still be hired as a Canadian employee. But we've also seen cases where students got hired directly by a US company that doesn't have a presence in Canada. They actually pay you US dollar. You have to convert that to Canadian dollar yourself. We've seen this a couple of times already. Yeah, and we have students who got hired into big tech as well. So it's totally possible. Yes, this is a fully remote program because in the program you'll find US students, you'll find students, from different cities. So it's kind of hard to get everyone into the same program. To help improve your experience, by introducing more interactivity, and that's why we introduced the peer programming. And so students will be, doing peer programming on a daily basis. And we switch teams as well, so you don't get comfortable with only one or two, classmates. A lot of the real life interviews you actually need to do the live coding as well. So that sort of help you get used to that. Is it recommended to get a degree in data science along with the bootcamp to get a job in data science? Degree is not that helpful. I can tell you that we have a lot of students who graduated from Masters of Data Science, and they still join the real client project. So, but if they graduate from Master of Data Science, we wouldn't recommend them to join a data science bootcamp because I think it will be a waste of their money and time. But these students typically, will go through the real client project because before they came to us, they already tried, and it's still very hard to get interviews. So what I'm saying here is that ultimately, if you have the real client project and you have another candidate has a master's in data science, I think the person who has the real project will beat the master student every single time. And that is very different. I came across a few people mentioning that one does not become a data scientist by studying it. Yes, exactly. So I want to be very upfront and honest. Not every employer like to hire bootcamp graduates because some of those hiring managers just don't believe that you can become a data scientist in 3 months. So that is actually true. But when you have the real project experience, that just changed the vibe. So you would like to graduate from a boot camp with real client project experience, that will set you up for success. But only going through a boot camp, then there are a few other factors because you're competing against basically more people who have graduated from masters and other boot camps. So you need to have a really awesome portfolio project, and you have to be patient because that is a long process. You have to get ready. In the boot camp, 3 months, you will learn the skills. and you need to spend 3 to 6 months to build up your portfolio, and then you need to get resume and everything ready, and then you have to apply for a job really, really hard. But people get jobs without attending boot camp, so it's totally doable, right? But I think having that real experience is definitely going to help you fast track things for sure. Yeah, so this is a great question from Amina. So after graduation from data science bootcamp and start working, if we want to develop our knowledge, what course or bootcamp you advise us to study? So with WeCloud Data, like, for students who graduate from the data science bootcamp, we typically give students, a $4,000 scholarship, so they can consider joining our data engineering bootcamp. But actually, more data science students will be interested in the machine learning and MLOps engineering bootcamp. So that's sort of the next level. It's a more advanced program. And it's also like the trend, right? But you have to sort of learn data science first. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to get admitted into the machine learning engineering bootcamp, because most of the students in that program is already working data scientist. But yeah, you get pretty big scholarship. But student will also have the option to just take advanced courses, because most of the boot camps we have, for example, MLOps, we actually have 3 courses, so you can take the course that you would like to study. So it essentially means that you can create your own boot camp as well. If you're a data science graduate and you're already working in the industry, have some experience, then maybe you need a little bit data engineering experience, you need a little bit MLOps experience, and you can sort of just get individual courses that you like. And yeah. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that you will always have access to the bootcamp material, because sometimes students will tell us they actually, when they start their first job, they're not always going to apply, machine learning or big data, but they would like to keep their knowledge fresh. So they would like to come back to the portal and watch some of the recordings. First of all, you can do that. And we also give student an opportunity to repeat the bootcamp once for free. We don't encourage students to do that, because that means the first time you go through it, it's not effective. But this happens when the student's priority changes. So sometimes the student, for example, had to go back to their home country. This happened a couple of times during COVID, for example. And sometimes just life priority changes, or the student just found a new job and then they couldn't finish the boot camp. So we allow them to sort of, let's say a full-time bootcamp student who get a job during the boot camp, who couldn't finish it, and then we allow the student to switch to the part-time program so they can continue to finish that. So you can sort of switch between full-time and part-time as well. And then we allow the student to repeat the boot camp. This probably doesn't happen very often for data science. It's more often for data engineering bootcamp, because you just learn more tools in data engineering. And I think we're revamping the entire program for July. So we used to cover AWS, and now we are adding Azure. So some of the students is already interested in just attending the bootcamp again, just to learn new stuff. So it's almost like a one-time free upgrade or something like that you can do. Yeah. Yeah, you can. That's what we call like program switch over. So you can switch from full-time into part-time. You can sometimes students switch from part-time to full-time if they would like to move faster. It happened a couple of times as well. Like the student started as part-time and unfortunately got like laid off, and the students said, okay, I'm just going to do full-time. So you can switch as well. Any other questions about the boot camp? All right, I hope this session gives you all the details you need to learn more about WeCloud Data's data science bootcamp. We run other bootcamps in similar fashion. And of course, like I think in the DevOps program, we're probably not going to have that much business related case studies, but we try to adopt similar approaches. So yeah, so if you ever consider joining any boot camps, you should definitely consider WeCloud Data and come and talk to us and see if we are the right fit for you. Oh, there's one more question. What is the starting date of the boot camp? The next cohort actually starts at the end of May this month, and the cohort afterwards will be September. And then if May is a bit of rush for you, then you can consider joining the data, because we have the data fundamental course that we're going to start in the data fundamental course. I think will start in August. We may be able to start running that in June, but basically it's a 6 weeks program to get students prepared. So if you join August cohort, you will definitely, get ready for the September cohort because it starts end of September. Then I think it will, 6 weeks, you'll be able to finish the data fundamentals. And the fee will be waived when you join the boot camp. So it's like a free course for you. I'm a software engineer with some knowledge in the math and statistics from courses, but no career experience. And I want to take the machine learning engineer course. Seems like you discourage it because it's too advanced, and most enrollees are employed as data scientists. Not necessarily. So it is, first of all, an advanced core program. The typical student profiles are they already work in the industry as data scientists, or they are software engineers who would like to switch to, or they would like to work as a software engineers who are familiar with machine learning and AI. So if you come from strong software engineering background, you'll be a good fit as well, but there's definitely a knowledge gap, which is the machine learning, right? So in terms of the machine learning knowledge, even though we do 2 weeks of machine learning review, it will be too fast for someone who has never studied machine learning before. So my recommendation would be, since we have pre-bootcamp, and we would encourage students to just spend a month to 2 to complete a machine learning course. And in this case, we typically allow the students to take one of our machine learning course in the data science program as a prerequisite. And sometimes when we have promotion, then it will basically be free for student who's decided to join the machine learning program, because we just want them to get prepared. Otherwise, I think it will be a little bit hard to catch up. I think for software engineers, the second semester of machine learning engineering program will be a lot easier, because we start to cover how to build APIs, deploy things, infrastructure, DevOps, and those kind of things. But the first semester, it has 2 courses, computer vision as well as natural language processing. So yeah, I think understanding classical machine learning algorithms and have worked on some machine learning challenges already will be very helpful. But it doesn't mean that you have to have worked as a data scientist already. It's all just like the amount of preparation you do. For the real client projects, you mentioned it takes about 3 to 6 months. Does some projects have smaller scope than others? Is that why some project takes shorter time? How much real client project will be provided? Good question. So the duration is 6 months. And some students actually prefer to work on smaller projects. It depends on your needs. And to be honest, it also depends on the projects we have. We always try to have an inventory of projects that's starting, so the students will get to work on projects. But some students will be assigned to projects that are longer. The scope might be bigger. but it also means that it just have like a bigger team working on it. It doesn't mean like you will end up working on everything, right? You work in a team. Sometimes student will tell us that my timeline is 3 months. I need to get a job in 3 months. And we never tell the student that we can help you make that happen, but we will give suggestions because we think that being able to complete 3 projects, let's say each project is 1 month long, right? Which essentially means that the project scope is smaller, but you're able to add 3 projects to the resume and you have more talking points in the interview if really you have to find a job in 3 months. So I would prefer or suggest working on smaller scope projects, but but finish something, as quickly as possible. That's just more practical. But if you have the time, then you can choose to work with bigger clients on bigger projects. So students do have the option to choose the project they work on, but we usually ask the student to give us the top 3, so preferences. It will be a little bit hard for us to arrange project if the students say, I have to work on this one project, right? But if the student can give us top 3 choices, then we'll make sure that you get one of those. Yeah. And of course, you can work on multiple projects. So yeah, some students will be working on multiple projects, and some students will be working on like stay with one client for a very long time. Yeah, but end of the day, that's the experience you have on your resume. And it's the description and what you did in the project that matters. Yeah. Is 6 months the time limit? I think on the website we say 6 months, but if the student really prefer to, sometimes the student will tell us they're a new grad. They said, I'm really not in a rush to get a job. I'm also not confident. I'd like to work on a project for 9 months before I even start looking for jobs. Yeah, we'll make exceptions, but I guess it's hard to make exception for everyone. But what I'm saying here is that we try our best to accommodate. But honestly, we also don't suggest the students stay too long on projects. You need to work on job search for sure, right? But it depends on your need. So yeah, if you want to work on projects longer than 6 months, it's possible. Yeah, but I can't guarantee. Truck had a good question. So since it's a real life project, will we get paid? So this is something we're working on, right? So our goal is to get the students paid. What we are able to do is that very few students, depending on the projects, they're actually getting paid. But not every project will be paid projects. And sometimes in order for the student to get on these real life projects, we'll just a lot of times just do these projects for very low cost and for free so that we can afford, we charge the clients so that we can afford the project managers to actually lead the project, right? Because our goal, we're an education company. So our goal is not to become like a really large consulting company. And our mission is to really help people get jobs. And that's why it's a tough job. Like it's way harder to run WeCloudData than other boot camps because they don't have to worry about these real projects and career mentorship, right? But yeah, the student will start not getting paid because we're also not getting paid. But when projects are starting paying us, some students will start to get paid. Yeah. And this is, and our goal is that eventually, hopefully all students will get paid. Yeah. It's just not feasible at this point. Is there a need to go to the office while doing the real life projects? Before the COVID, actually, a lot of clients will require you to go to the office. We used to work with Samsung, and then students will have trips to Samsung to have all the meetings, and they'll have desks and they'll have laptops. But since COVID, it seems like most of the clients are totally okay with remote. And depending on the client, sometimes they'll ship laptop to different cities. But most of the clients are just going to ask you to sign an NDA and then give you access to their infrastructure. You may need to set up VPN. Yeah, because I think most of the data environment. You just need to be able to access the cloud infrastructure, and then you can do projects. Yeah. But you have to meet the clients, online every week. Good question. Will there be any assessment exams before allocation to your real life projects? There will be. That's why we have the project onboarding training. During the boot camp, students will be assessed one time. I think that's typically in week 8 after the student has learned the machine learning. And then, sorry, I'm just trying to go back to the page where we talk about the projects. Yeah, so we have the onboarding training. For the bootcamp students, the assessment actually happens in week 8. So that gives us an idea where the students are in terms of the skill sets. For people who join the real client project, so let's say you don't do the bootcamp, you're only getting the service to join the real client project to get trained on these projects as trainees. Then we'll have to do assessment. Because a lot of times you may tell us that, yeah, you can work on any projects, but you're just not ready. So yeah, you'll get trained. There'll be assessment. When you're ready, we'll put you on project. That's how it works. But during the bootcamp, the assessment, right? If you don't do very well, like you don't have to worry too much about it. It's like we're trying to be fair to everyone. So it doesn't mean that you do, better in test and you're going to get better projects. That's usually not how it works. Yeah. But we want to know if you're ready, right? So some students will wait a little bit longer. But yeah, most of the students will be able to start pretty much at the same time. And also it depends on when the projects will start sometimes. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join this session to learn more about WeCloud Data's Data Science Bootcamp. I think now you know where to contact us. You can fill out the form, or you can talk to program advisors, and yeah, I wish you all the best with your data job search journey, and I'll talk to you guys in the future events. Thanks.